It's never too late. Nothing's ever too late, but it's always good. They always talk about that Chinese proverb that best time to start investing was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. You start with what you've got, what you know. And so this is why I'm so passionate to get the message out there that, this is the way, this is the framework, this is the blueprint, how you can go from A to B to get to this position of financial peace. And it's not billions in the bank, but a position where you feel that there's enough money so you don't have to worry about money.
This episode is sponsored by Saxo Markets. Welcome to the Investing Insiders podcast, where we help you achieve financial well-being by making smarter money decisions. I'm Brianne, and in this episode, we'll be looking at what it really takes to achieve financial freedom and possibly even retire early. Joining us today is Felicia Flinders, founder of Wealthways, which is an education platform dedicated to helping people achieve financial independence and early retirement. Felicia, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
So financial freedom is something that is quite aspirational to a lot of people, and also the concept of retiring early. So there is the movement, which is financial independence and retire early, aka the FIRE movement. Before we kind of get into everything, could you give us a brief overview about how the movement works and what steps come into place?
Right, financial independence, retire early is sometimes referred to as a movement, but doesn't have to be. It's basically to get to a position where you have financial peace, where you've got enough in your life that you feel you don't have to worry about money at all. So, but the FIRE movement is very much an American type movement, but in the UK, not many people really sort of think they can have it. And so this is why I'm really motivated through Wealthways to start talking about this financial independent, retire early. And it's not actually retire early, because if you retire at 30 or 35 or 40, you've got so many more years in your life that it's all actually to make work optional. So you choose what you want to do with your time. So you've got location freedom and time freedom. So it's, for me, that's what it is for me, for my version of FIRE.
Incredible. And I suppose what would be great to find out is, what was your introduction to FIRE? And, what stage was it at your life that you said, okay, I'm really going to go for financial freedom, financial independence, and, have a bit more flexibility with what I want to do with my life?
Okay. With my one, this is my personal story, but it defied. It's different it means different things to different people. So I can talk about my experience. Okay, my FIRE time movement, the strive for financial independence, was actually, I wanted to retire my mother early. So mum was a nurse and she was a single mum of 4 children. And I just remember being age 30 and 3/4 thinking, oh, she hasn't got, dad had left, and she opted out of her pension scheme in the as a nurse. And I thought, oh, who's going to look after her when she retire? Thinking about age 60, 65. And it came to me like, oh, I could do that. And all I have to do is go to, study hard, go to university, get a high paid job. And so it was to retire my mum early. So, and guess what? By default, by focus on that, I did get into a high paid job being an actuary. And because I was able to retire her early, I bought properties and got a high income. And just by default, I could retire early because it started early. So the vision started at a very young age 13 3/4, but I didn't start early until I was at university, post-university. But starting early, this is one message I'm trying to get across when I do a lot of my social media posts, is like the compound effect. If you start early, you just need a little bit into your savings, and then the time would do most of the heavy lifting. And so that's how I managed to retire mummy early and myself early, because I started early, this mission to retire her early. In fact, back to what I said earlier, it's not actually, when she got to a position of financial peace, she didn't retire. She loved being a nurse. She loved nursing people. And so she used to work at weekends until she also started a master's degree on how to, on elderly care. So retiring early is actually about finding, deciding what you want to do with your time. It's just that freedom. And that's what it is. It's not like, oh, you just do nothing, you sit on the beach, do nothing. It's just like giving that power to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, injecting that flexibility back into, I guess, life and, like you say, how you spend your time and where you put your attention. When you started your journey, how much understanding did you have of, you know, the concept of financial freedom? You mentioned going to uni, getting a high paying job, and then moving into property. Is that something that, you got advice about, or was that just what you went with and it eventually worked out and came together?
Okay, it's a good question, that is, because looking back, it's only when you look back and you can sort of join the dots. But, I came from a sort of humble background, single mum. Mum had four of us. She was a single mum in inner city London. So there was no framework, there was no roadmap how to be rich and how to be wealthy. So I learned it as I went along. So I knew that, to get a high paid job, I wanted to work in the city because I was born and bred in West London. And so I go on straight to Reliant to bank. I'm going to work in the city. That's where the money is. So I knew I wanted to work in London, in the city, to earn the money. And then, so that was like that vision when I was aged 30 and three quarters. And then I thought, okay, luckily I was quite good at maths. So I did maths and management sciences. So that to get into this profession called being an actuary, because I didn't even know what an actuary was until I was at university when my friend was going for this interview. I said, oh, I'm going for an interview to become an actuary. I didn't know what it was, but she went for the interview. I applied for actuarial roles, and I did get that. And she decided not to become an actuary. She became a computer science person. So working with numbers and money meant that I could earn relatively well. And because my training as an actuary, we get taught about things like investments and property and insurance and risk, and that really helped me to open my eyes on what's possible. And also, they talk about you're the average of five people you're around. So at lunchtime, in the good old days where you used to have a restaurant, staff restaurant, we go to have lunch and we all sit around the table. And I do remember one person saying to me, two guys, they said, oh yeah, I'm going to put extra money into my pension scheme called ABC, which is additional voluntary contribution, which is extra money you can put into your pension, workplace pension, to top up your pension. And I'm going to retire at 40. I just thought, before that, I was thinking people retired at 60, 65. But that idea into my mind, oh, you can actually retire at 40. That's interesting. And another girl whilst I'm working as an actuary, she said, I'm going to pay off my mortgage by age 40. Again, I always thought everyone had a 25-year mortgage. So, all these concepts came into my life, and I thought, yeah, let's put that into place, plus my overriding mission to retire my mum early.
I think that's really interesting. I think obviously each step that you've taken has opened up new pathways and exposure to new people along the way, which naturally gave you those extra pointers and different perspectives. How important would you say then community is on this journey to, achieving financial freedom and potentially retiring early?
Community is, I think you need a community around you. So, okay, with my personal story, I could only actually been in this position because my mum helped me to qualify, in the sense that when I had my first child, I was like quite young, relatively young. I was 26. And so like, yeah, I was halfway through my exam. She said, well, you go back to work, I will look after your baby. And she did that. She was like, full-time carer for my baby, my firstborn. So I went back to work, and she was like, I then carried on and qualified as an actuary. But in that process, I also went part-time, and also I qualified. And so she was my community. We worked together as a family to make that happen. So that support system was essential. And also the workforce, people at work, they just thought differently, from someone who was like born and bred in like a working class community. It opened my eyes. And so community is important.
I think it would be really interesting to know, actually, what were conversations about money like as you were growing up? Do you remember it being something that was discussed quite openly? Was it a closed thing? How was money dealt with within your household?
Again, I was very fortunate. My mum was a single mum, as I said, and she was a nurse. And she was very open about money. She'll show us her pay slip. So when I first started my day job, my first job as an actuary, actually my pay was actually, I think, equal to hers. So that made me realise that, money was discussed all the time. She was very open about money and very progressive in the sense that she saw education as a passport to creating wealth. So the more educated you were, the more chance you have to get into a higher paid job. And it was just very open, and I was glad about that. And also, to tell you the truth, this property investment thing, when I left university, I bought my first property within 6 months of leaving university. The reason being, she was always like progressive and said, like, property investment is good, and buying your first home, all that stuff. So that was introduced into my life for a very young age. I knew that buying a property was important. So again, thanks to her. So that's one reason I started my property journey really early at a very young age, 6 months after university. Got that one-bed flat.
Yeah. I mean, that does set like a pretty solid foundation for kind of building your wealth and creating that asset for yourself. I think when it comes to hearing concepts like financial freedom, retiring early, that type of thing, a lot of people can sometimes assume that it's a bit unrealistic. What kind of things would you say to somebody that said that's not possible for me, not for the likes of me? What would you say?
Well, this is one reason I do sort of post quite frequently on social media, that sometimes you need to see to believe, and I also believe that representation matters. So I've come out of my comfort zone because I'm typical. Well, I suppose most actuaries are quite introverted, but I've got this mission to say, like, if I've done it, then other people can do it. And by the way, this is what you can do, and I educate people, because all my posts are educational. They're not advice at all. They're all about education on this is possible, what is possible. So it's back to, on my YouTube channel, I talk about mindset. The mindset's important. Like, if you believe you can, That's one step. That if you believe you can't do it, then it's not going to happen. So having that mindset that, oh well, this person who sort of looks like me, sounds like me, has achieved it, and she's talking about it all the time. Maybe it is possible. And so that's why I give examples how I've done it, and then, if anyone wants to come to my workshop, they can ask me precise question. Okay, it's okay. It's like my kids say to me, "Oh, it's okay. It was different in your times. It's a lot easier, many years ago." But I don't say no. But actually, it's allowing for inflation. It's the same sort of numbers, and it is possible. And we didn't have things like AI agents in our days, and you can do so much now that we didn't have. And so, even like, as you know, that 1975 is when women could actually have their own mortgage and go and buy their own property. Before that, you needed to have the man's name for you to get a loan or get a mortgage. So things have changed. So everything's possible. Is having that, yes, I can do it. And if X, Y, and Z have done it, yes, I can do it as well.
So thinking about the numbers, how should somebody start working out their strategy or plan for getting towards financial freedom and potentially retiring early?
Oh, it's a good question. That is brilliant, because you need a framework. So framework for those in FIRE, the official, or what most people use, is having this, like, you think about your expenses in retirement, and you say, okay, I want this is, to make the numbers easy to understand. So you want 40,000, your expenses in retirement is 40,000 a year. Then you need a 25 times 40 is a million, and then you need 4% of that would give you the 40,000. And that's one rough and ready way to work out how much money you need in retirement. And that's what you're going to say, I'm going to aim to build up my investments to be that level. Yeah.
And for anybody that feels like they don't necessarily have the income or enough income to start putting away those sums, is there anything that they can do to either increase their income, or is there like a different framework for people that might be lower earners, or what can they do?
Good question. I mean, again, at the end of the day, to increase your wealth, you need more income. So either you do it through your day job, which was, you go to a profession where over the years you can increase your income. So for instance, the actuarial profession, which is what I understand, you pass exams. Every time you pass an exam, you become more valuable to the company and they give you a pay rise. And then you can take some of that money and then put it so I can allocate that towards my freedom, my retirement fund, or you can say I can max out my pension as well. So I can increase my pension allocation every time I get a bonus. 50% will go towards holidays, current spending. 50% can go towards your future self, and you put more into your pension. So utilising things like pensions, increasing your pay by either promotion or, as you know, currently, I think for the younger generation is actually moving jobs every 2 to 3 years, because every time you move a job, you negotiate higher pay. Or you can say, okay, I can do something else. I have my 9 to 5 job. I can do what people call now is your 5 to 9 job. Yeah, you start side income and you do something else, like, back to what I said earlier on, this generation, we've got things like being on social media and become, post on YouTube and getting income from YouTube, or getting brand deals. So different ways of finding their second income. Even, to tell the truth, even though I was qualified as an actuary, it came to a stage where I had children and I wanted them to go to grammar schools. So I taught myself how to pass the exams. Then I taught my kids, and I also taught my friends' children. So I was doing tutoring. So another stream of income. I was tutoring my friends' children how to get into grammar schools or to get scholarship. There's always ways to get different income. And even I remember when even my mum, she was a nurse, but she used to be an Avon lady. So she was selling Avon and getting, money. There's just have to be really creative, find ways to get another stream of income. And really never, ever rely on one stream of income, because once that's gone, you've got nothing. Always have, I do say to my kids, like, think of having more than one stream of income. And so that, one, for security, and two, you can then feed into your retirement fund.
Absolutely. And I guess having a family, how has that impacted your FIRE strategy? Is it something that was built in from the beginning, or have you had to adapt and change as your family has grown?
Yes. Okay. To tell you the truth, I was financially independent without realising, because this, going back to what I was saying, FIRE was more like an American thing. And I knew about this. What I achieved was like called FIRE only like 5 or 6 years ago through YouTube, watching YouTube videos. But when I sat down, I thought, gosh, Felicia, you actually got there sooner, because there's different. The reason why, which is when people come to work with me, I give them this tracker. It's called the net worth tracker, which you look at your total assets and your total liabilities, and then you work out the difference and get to the net position. And then if you track that maybe on a monthly basis or quarterly basis, you can see where you're going with your wealth, and it becomes like you can sort of gamify it and become like a game you play. Okay, how can I grow my wealth quicker? So what I didn't do was have this net worth tracker. I didn't track where I was. I just bobbled along. And so when I qualified, I worked in the workplace, and I became an independent actuary consultant. And then my job dried up, because I didn't want to move from London to a different place, go to like Scotland or Wales to find a job. And I came out of the workforce. It's only when I realised, when I stopped working, that I was in a position that I was actually financially free. And I could have been, and I think looking back, I got there sooner. But this is why it's always good to have a structure in place where you track what your value, what your wealth is, and then measure it, and then you can see it growing over time. So it never came for me personally. I didn't know, I've got there, because I didn't track it. So now I say to people, start tracking your net position, and use it as your GPS to financial freedom.
Yeah. And how extreme would you say your sort of lifestyle decision making was? Like, did you feel like you had to, at any point, sacrifice anything that was part of your budget to make sure that the tracker kind of stayed in place, or were there any like extreme changes that you had to sort of factor in financially?
Okay, I think this is why I think that financial freedom is possible for everyone, because I've got 4 children and I live in London, and so I was also was able to retire at 48. So as we know, everyone knows kids are expensive, and so and we went on holiday. So it wasn't like, I think it's choosing. Okay, the tricks. Okay, the tricks I had looking back was like, it was being intentional on what we spent our money on. So we had this 8-seater car, a Toyota Privia, and we had it for 20 years. So we bought it new and we kept it. We ran it for 20 years. So not changing your cars, not focusing on things like that, but focusing on what mattered to us in life, like, going on holiday, eating well, but not changing our cars every few years. And another one we did, again, I alluded to early on, was moving to a location where the schools were good. So we didn't have to spend on school fees. And that saved us a lot of money. So focus on taking time out of my career to focus on getting my kids into grammar schools saved us tons of money, because there's four lots of school fees we didn't have to pay for. So taking sort of, I don't know, my logical brain led me to those sort of life choices, buying the right location so that I didn't have to pay for where the schools are good, not changing my cars, and not going for flashy clothing, that sort of thing, but still having a life and having a good holiday.
Yeah, I think so. There are 2 things actually I'd love to dig into a bit more with that. First of all, avoiding lifestyle creep, which tends to affect a lot of people, especially when your income goes up, and there might be other things that have always been on your mind that you want to do, maybe changing your car a bit more often, or getting new clothes, traveling a bit more, but that all has an impact on the balance of finances, and it's just making sure that it doesn't offset the pay rise or the income increase that you've had. So you kind of alluded to it already, but were there any other mechanisms you put in place to make sure that you didn't kind of compare yourself too much to other families, or anything that you saw through social media or anything like that? How did you kind of just stay within what you knew to be true and needed and necessary for your family to get along and be fine?
Yeah, okay, that's a really good question, because what made me bring a smile to my face is that I was really, really intentional in building wealth. So any spare cash went into property investment. So we bought the first property, we kept that. It actually went into negative equity for 10 years, because we bought at the peak of May 88 it was. I remember the first day we got the first set of keys. And then the market flopped for 10 years. So it was negative equity for 10 years. So, but in that time period, we got promotions, our income increased. So any spare cash went into investment, because investment was for the future. Buying property was for the future. So I suppose it's having the mindset that having delayed gratification, that investing for the future was a good thing to do. So any pay rise went into maximise the pensions, and then putting down deposit for properties. And then if you buy property, although I experienced negative equity for 10 years, over the long term, property has done really well in the UK, because we live in an island and people still need housing. So it was a good, wise move to focus on property investment. So it was intentionally not, having that life plan to buy properties meant I didn't really have time to, I didn't really want to waste money on expensive handbags and et cetera. So it was just that plan, that life plan is to have, this is why, again, I talk about in my workshops, is to build assets, focus on building assets and increasing your wealth that way. And there's different assets you can go. I went the property route because I had my fingers burnt when I was trying to when I went to the stock market, I didn't really know about funds and ETFs. So I bought individual shares, and it went up and then it went down and it went into negative. And I thought, I'm not doing that again. So I decided to focus on property investment, and that's done really well. But again, when I talk about stock market investment in my workshops, I educate people that there's more to invest in than individual shares, unless you know in the ins and out of that company. You've got to be diversified and think about global, think about ETFs, and think about fund a basket of shares, which is what ETF stands for, and not just put all your eggs in one basket. So yeah, that's how it was. It was no lifestyle creep really. It was just being intentional and building wealth.
This episode of the Investing Insiders podcast is sponsored by Saxo Markets. Saxo provides access to a broad range of global assets through a sophisticated trading platform. You can trade US stocks from as little as $1 per trade and UK stocks from $3 per trade. Please remember that all investing involves risk. The value of your investments can go down as well as up, and you could get back less than you invest. Terms and conditions apply. Visit Saxo Markets to learn more. Investing is quite a big part of building wealth as well, whether it's through property, like you mentioned, or looking to the stock market. When it comes to looking at stocks, shares, and funds, things like that, you sort of mentioned that you dipped your toe in a little bit and it didn't necessarily work out at that point. When did you revisit the concept of investing in the stock market, and how did you build your confidence as an investor in that aspect?
Well, excellent. Okay, I did get my fingers burnt, and that was when did I buy my individual shares? It was in my late 20s, early 30s. Someone said, "Oh yeah, go into the stock market, invest," and bought the individual shares. It taught me a big lesson not to go there. So I diverged and went into real estate. It's only recently in lockdown I went back into the stock market and I started maximising my ISAs. Because again, another thing is it's funny how government rules actually affects your path in life. Because when in my 20s and 30s, the equivalent to an ISA is individual savings account. We can only put like £3,000 into it. So I thought £3,000 every year is not going to get me to be financially free quickly enough. So, but now you can maximise, we can put into an ISA 20,000, which makes a massive difference. So it's only recently, since lockdown, I've started maximising on my ISA. And to tell the truth, I've just looked at it before I came on this interview. I started off in earnest it was like 2019, and then my first ISA maxed out in 2020. That by doing that and put into not individual shares, but a global tracker ETF, it's now worth around 200,000. That's in 6 years. And that's just basically understanding. So I educate myself and say, okay, this is I don't know enough about one company to put all my eggs in one basket. Let's do a global tracker. And that's what I've done. And it's made a difference. So, being a typical actuary, I can say that was the past. This is what happened in the last 6 years. I can't guarantee it's going to happen in the next 6 years, but just getting started and having a well-diversified portfolio is the way forward. So, yeah, then another thing I can add, to tell you the truth, is that with my pensions, I knew a lot about pensions from being an actuary because I was a pension actuary. I maxed out and I took employees. I didn't opt out like my mom did. I opted in. I stayed opted in. I maxed out with my employer's contribution. One of my employers used to match 14%. So when I did that, yes, I did. So I thought, okay, I'll take that. So I maxed out. I took them employer's contribution. So always look out for your employer's contribution. Make sure that if they offer it, max take that. The thing about pensions is when you retire early, you can't access your pension until the scheme retirement age or scheme retirement age. So you do need something in between to bridge early retirement age to your scheme retirement age. One of my scheme retirement age was 60. And as you know now, for me, my state pension age is 67. If I retired to 48, so what am I living on? It's the rental income, essentially. But if you had money into an ISA, it goes in post-tax income, but you can take it out tax-free. So the ISA is a good way to bridge retirement income. Yeah.
So investing, I guess, during the pandemic in particular, like I know that there's been a lot of market shocks, throughout the whole entire age of investing. But with the pandemic in particular, there was a lot of market volatility where the value of companies was going up and down a lot. I know you mentioned that you put your money into a tracker fund, but was there continued growth during that period? Were there any dips? How did you emotionally regulate yourself with any changes in the value of your portfolio?
Excellent question, because when you do go into the stock market, because my nightmare experience when I was my late 20s and early 30s, it was like it took me about 10 or 15 years later that I went back into the stock market. And so then when I went in there, it was like March when the market dipped 20% in a few days because of COVID. But looking back, it's gone up, hasn't it? So if you look at historically, the stock market it does have its dips and its ups and downs like a roller coaster ride, but it goes, the upward trend is upward. There's a trend upwards, but you have to learn that it would go down. So actually what I'm doing at the moment, so I had this brainwave to help my followers on social media. I'm actually putting £100 every week into the stock market since December the 17th. And people follow that journey, and I post daily what the movement is so they can see in real time how volatile the market is, but how it goes up and down. At one stage, and actually I put in day one, my 100 quid. The next day it was worth 99 pence, 99 pounds. So it just shows how it's gone up. And then one stage, I think March this year, March 26, it went down 5%. But now, as we call this interview, it's plus 5%. So I'm showing my followers that how the market does go up and down, and to experience it using my money is at risk. But it's to give people, help people learn that, or teach people, educate people that the stock market is volatile, but over the long term, it does go up. And again, built like a Blue Peter example. Here's one I tried early on. I had, when I started in March 2020, look at it, it's now worth 200,000. So I'm giving people, examples, case studies that, the market is worth investing in the stock market if you know what you're doing. So you need to be, trained up. And then I teach people how to fish so that they can make their own decision, because I can't, everyone's got different level of risk, and they will different level of rewards as well. So that's why I'm really passionate about, doing my workshops on pensions and stock market investment, because once you learn something, you can't unlearn it, and you can then teach other people as well in your community to grow their wealth.
And it builds that confidence. I think sometimes what holds people back is that sense of, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to choose, where to go, how long to be invested in, risk, as you were saying, how much can I afford to take on? Should I take on any? And with all of those questions coming on, it can put people into a freeze state where they just don't take any action at all. So it's really great to sort of hear that example of showing people, okay, the value of this may go down, but it will go up at some point as well, hopefully. So getting used to that, it kind of helps a lot.
Yeah, because again, I'm a typical actuary. We manage risk, and risk mitigation is key. So I would not do something unless I understand what's coming next. So I try and manage even me personally. So because I am like that person, I was thinking, what was Felicia like when she was in her 20s and 30s? What would she like to have been shown? And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, is to say, okay, it's not too bad. You can watch what I'm doing, and then it is fine. Yeah. So people do take action and move, because it's so important now to take ownership of your future and your wealth. And there's so much information out there. Sometimes you get overwhelmed, and sometimes you need someone to hold your hand if you're that sort of character. And that me. So I was thinking, how can I demonstrate to somebody in their 20s and 30s, a Felicia in that age group, how would she move forward and be on stock? So that's what I'm doing with all this posting on social media.
So with some of the people that you sort of work with and that you've spoken to, are there any common mistakes that you see happen when they're embarking on this journey in the beginning?
Before they come to me is the fear of the unknown and not having that sort of knowledge in their community. Because this is the reason why I do what I do, because if I wasn't an actuary, I wouldn't know all this information. I think there's definitely a knowledge gap for a lot of people. Those in the know will excel and would accelerate their wealth, but people who don't know or don't know how to start, I think there's definitely a gap in there. That's why I'm trying to fill that niche. So it's knowledge and taking action. So people are fearful, but when I said, look, this is what I've done, and I'm actually doing it in real time, like watch, go to my Instagram account, you can see what's happened with this £100 a week. And we're now in week 21 as we speak. And they've got 21 weeks of knowledge now. And the pension stuff, again, I post a lot about pension. A lot of people get excited about property investment, which I've done as well. But pension, they forget and they think, oh, it's a bit boring. Oh, that's when I'm old. I'm not old yet. But actually, if you start sooner, you can, like, the time's on your side and you can grab your employer's contribution. In fact, I had this amazing girl who I did a presentation at a female wealth event. And I was talking about pensions and getting really excited, because I do get excited when I talk about pensions. And she said, she came to me and became one of my mentees, client, and because her dad just retired and he had not taken his pension seriously, or didn't know much about his pensions, and didn't have much for pension. And she now in her mid-20s thought, I don't want that for myself. And so she came to me to learn how to manage her pension, opted back into her workplace pension because she thought, oh, I want the money now, but realised that when I went through the session how important the pension is, she's opted back into her workplace pension. In the 4 months she was with me, she saw the pension grow, and she's given that information to her dad and to her siblings. And that's why I get excited about doing what I do, is because I can fill in that knowledge gap that is missing.
Absolutely. And it does come back to that community aspect of it, where you can either help empower somebody else or be empowered by somebody and their journey, and make those decisions for yourself to make sure that you're in a good place financially. I think beyond the financial aspect of it, money, finances itself can have quite an emotional or psychological charge. One of the things that we've explored on the podcast before is, the concept of how taboo money can be depending on, your surroundings and things like that. And the fact that our money habits actually get formed very, very early. So around the age of 7, for people who know what to do, but maybe sometimes have that barrier or feel like there's just something that ends up bringing them back to square one each and every time, and might hint that there's something beyond, just the knowledge gap. What steps can they take to try and unpick what those things might be leading them into, negative cycles when it comes to money?
Money is quite an emotional thing. It's a psychological thing, so much that some persons, Morgan Housel, in his book, The Psychology of Money, has made millions writing that book, because it's an emotional thing and psychological. So I think one needs to accept it. I was fortunate because I went into the financial field and learned a lot about money, and also did a management type, financial type degree. So I always knew about money. But in my family, my mum was the opposite. My mum's opposite of me. She's a spender. So everyone's different. You've got the savers, you've got the spenders, of those people. They've got someone calls another guy who was really good. Another book I would recommend is by T. Harv Eker, The Secret, The Millionaire Mindset. He talks about the different characters, and naturally, it comes to me easy for me to save. I can do delayed gratification. My mum was the opposite. She was a spender and she would spend, but she was just a spender. I remember spending. So if you can recognize who you are, different mindset we have towards money, and then think, oh, I'm that, then you can actually then take action to sort of negate that, in a sense. So for instance, one thing I took from T. Harv Eker's book is the money jar system, 6 jars or 6 accounts. And that really plays to all our different personality towards money. Because if you're a saver, it tells you've got to allocate X amount to spending, and you've got to spend that every month. And if you're a spender, it tells you that you save for your short term, long term, and it forces you to save as a spender. And then you've got the fun account for whatever you can spend on your lifestyle and education. So the 6 jar system is a good way of helping every personality type. And so back to your question, I think it's understanding and accepting that we're all different and we all got different money blueprint, but actually we can have a framework by using this 6 jar system to work towards our goals.
Definitely. And I guess you've kind of touched on this already, but when it does come to financial freedom, financial independence, what does that look and feel like? How do you know when you've actually gotten there?
Okay. There's 2 aspects to it. There's a number side. Okay, you've done your spreadsheet, you fill in your net worth tracker, and you've got this magic number you wanted to that equates to your magic number. So the number side, and also there's the psychological side. Okay, so even though it's really funny, because even though I got financial freedom at 48, it's taken me quite a few years to actually accept the psychological side and to say, oh yeah, especially I think for those people who are naturally savers, they will carry on saving and never spend. So the second time, I don't get any commission for this book, but Morgan House has written another book called The Art of Spending. So people, you do actually need to flex that muscle to spend, become a spender, and to spend your wealth. So there's 2 sides. You get to the number, and also you got to then the mindset side that, oh yeah, I actually got there. I don't need to worry about, what you spend your money on. So that's what's come to me on reflecting on this when you get to financial freedom.
Because I think, as you mentioned before, most people tend to work in some capacity beyond that. So it might not necessarily be like a organized 9 to 5 type situation, but they might take on more personal projects or passion projects at that point.
Yeah, it becomes work optional. In fact, to talk about the FIRE movement, there's different definition of FIRE. Financial independence, retire early. There's a stage where you've got enough money, was what we call coast FIRE. You've got enough money in your investment fund and pension fund that you can, at maybe in your early 30s, you've reached that target, then compound interest would do the rest. And you don't have to worry about that. Then you can take like a low-key job, less stressful job. You don't have to chase the money. So that's called coast FIRE. You coast your way into your financial independence number. And you've got, lean FIRE and fat FIRE. So there's different levels. And you can say, well, I've got enough money. I'll let time do the rest by compounding it with growth. And then I can take a low-key job, less stressful job. Or I can just do like my passion project. I don't need my hobby full time. I don't need to get paid for it, or money isn't important anymore.
And is this something that you find that your children are aspiring to as well? Seeing you kind of lay the foundation and everything, is this something that they come to you for guidance on to try and achieve the same thing?
Do you want the honest answer?
Yeah, no, go for it.
My kids are not into financial stuff at all. They're just not. It's not their thing. It's not their thing because it isn't. It's again back to the money personality. Everyone's different with their attitudes to money. I think I was passionate about finance because my passion was really to retire my mum early, and unfortunately she passed away early as well. So all that money I accumulated for her came back. So it was. So what I think is important, another book reference, I don't get commission for this, is The 5 Types of Wealth. And that's by Sahil Bloom. And there's wealth, there's financial wealth, there's physical wealth, and mental wealth, time wealth. And it's so important to focus as you live, to focus on all 5 types of wealth, because focusing on one becomes the other sides become imbalanced. And there's no point in having so much money in the bank, but your health is bad. So it's important to just balance these types of wealth. So with my kids, I think they have a more balanced view of life because the financial side is sorted. I don't know, but everyone's different, and we all got to. I think now, knowing about the five types of wealth, to focus on not just one, because to have a balance towards all different types of wealth throughout life.
I think that's a really important thing to remember. Is it ever too late to start this journey towards financial freedom? Perhaps the concept of retiring early, it will change depending on what age you start. But the idea of financial freedom and having that flexibility and independence, is it ever too late to get started on that?
It's never too late. Nothing's ever too late, but it's always good. They always talk about that Chinese proverb that best time to start investing was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. You can only start with what you've got, what you know. And so this is why I'm so passionate to get the message out there that, this is the way, this is the framework, this is the blueprint, how you can get from A to B to get to this position of financial peace. And it's not billions in the bank, but a position where you feel there's enough money so you don't have to worry about money. So no, it's never too late, but the sooner you start, the better.
And for anybody that's listened to this and they're like, wow, okay, I want to start my own journey to financial freedom, what's the first step that they should take?
The first step is like the fact that they have that mindset that they want to do it, and it can be done. And believe it can be done, because if someone like me with, sleeping on to Felicia's floor when I was a child has now got to this position, it is possible. I believe it's possible everyone, but everyone needs the knowledge and to take action and the framework. And so what I'm trying to offer to people is the roadmap, the blueprint, and to avoid the expensive mistakes I've made, because I've made loads of expensive mistakes over the years, and with joint ventures and trusting people and losing a lot of money, and there's loads of things. And then going to the stock market and buying individual companies I didn't know anything about because it said, someone said it's good to buy. So there's loads of things out there that I try and guide people and educate people. It's just to start, really. It's to say, I can do it. And if Felicia's done it, I'm sure I can do it as well. But it does, I didn't do it by myself. I had support from different people. I had support from my mum, who supported me with my kids and went back to and also had saying that focus on education and allowing us to go to university, not leave school at 16. And most days you can live at 16, now it's 18. And also like having my employers who allowed me to go into the actuarial profession and said, not many people look like me have become actuaries, and say, that person opened the doors for me to become an actuary. And of course I had to do the exams as well and pass those horrible, difficult exams, but just having that opportunity. So that's why I like to give. I know I've been blessed and I'm grateful. So that's why I feel, whilst I'm now in retirement mode, I've got more time. I want to help as many people as possible, because I got helped along the way. I didn't do all this by myself. It's God's will.
Oh, well, Felicia, thank you so much for joining this episode. It's been incredible to hear your story, more about the FIRE movement, and just to get that framework of the fact that financial freedom is possible. You just got to put your mind to it and start taking those steps and putting things into place to get there.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's been really interesting discussion. Excellent questions.
Thank you so much for joining our Investing Insiders podcast. If you like the episode, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review on your platform of choice. For the latest money news and deals, you can sign up to our weekly newsletter at investinginsiders.co.uk/newsletter-page. We've also got a suite of guides, tools, and calculators on our website at investinginsiders.co.uk. You can also keep up to date with us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you in the next episode.